Blog Talk Radio.
Welcome to Institute for Personal Development, where total consciousness is the new frontier. Kriya Yoga is the union of the individual with the divine. Join us as we explore the practices that initiate this process.
Well, good morning and welcome to the Voice of Yoga. Let's talk consciousness. I am your hostess, Lisa Winton, and with me is Swami Jayananda, also known as Kenny Utoy, founder of Institute for Personal Development, located here in Hampton, New Hampshire. Good morning, Swami. Thank you for being here today. How are you?
I'm doing very well today. How about you?
I'm doing great on this moon day. And I want to thank you, listeners, for tuning in. Today on the Voice of Yoga, we'll be talking about the Pearl Harbor event that was on December 7th, 1941, and recap what happened. We'll discuss the benefits of using past events to help recreate future circumstances for ourselves. Ahimsa in Kriya Yoga means non-injury and is the first Yama. We will discuss the importance of protecting yourself as an essential component to this stage. Swami will explain the value of making a safe environment to allow oneself to become vulnerable. It is not recommended to expose oneself in an unsafe environment. Join the Kriya Yoga Spiritual Advance to get the light in your soul and get the benefit of internal support to become self-reliant and independent. So what I thought I would do, Swami, is just kind of give a quick overview as to what had happened. So today is Pearl Harbor Remembrance Day. So on December 7th, it was a Sunday, 1941, the Imperial Japanese Navy Air Service attacked the naval station of Pearl Harbor in Honolulu. And it was also without warning, without a declaration of war, killing 2,403 American non-combatants and injuring 1,178 others. Actually, the result was the attack sank 2 U.S. naval battleships and damaged 5 others. It also damaged 3 cruisers, 3 destroyers, and 1 mine layer. Aircraft losses were 188 destroyed and 159 damaged, so it was quite a bit of turmoil on that particular day. So what happened was on August 23rd, 1994, the United States Congress took this day and they decided to honor this day as National Pearl Harbor Remembrance Day. So we said in our summary that we can learn from history. So it's such a tragic event. What is it that we can learn from that?
I thought we said in our summary that the one thing that we learn from history is that we don't learn from history. Mm-hmm. But like anything, one of the things I always try and do is I try and look at not just the actual event, and especially something that happened on a very large-scale collective level, like Pearl Harbor, but I like to look at what I call the myth or the theme, say, for example, of a sneak attack, that anything that kind of blindsides us, and this can happen on a very personal level, something that happens that is unexpected, and it causes damage.
I guess I may be able to equate that to an experience I had this summer with a bicycle accident. Is that kind of what you're talking to, whether it's an injury or a work-related drama, something like that?
Yeah, something very unexpected, or even, say, for example, like a symptom in your body. All of a sudden now, something has invaded your body, and you're now at war with something that has caused some sort of damage or collateral damage, or you're out of balance. And trying to use the simple fact that this exists, I think just that in general is kind of like what we're trying to say here. That there's an old saying, an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure. And that's really, I think that's great when we're able to prevent things from happening. But once you are the recipient of what I would call a cheap shot, you're going to need some cure. And if all your efforts are just put in prevention and you don't have any kind of line of defense or any kind of game plan for your cures, then you may find yourself scrambling in the event of some sort of sneak attack, something that happens that was unexpected, where you're just completely blindsided. I never expected that to happen.
So how do we protect ourselves, from this non-injury? Because obviously we have said in other shows that everything that happens to us, we order it. So how do we have the sense to not put ourselves in danger, not have injury?
Yeah, that's exactly the whole thing. There are no accidents that on some level we're creating everything. I think where the distinction has to be made is between what is conscious, what is unconscious, and what is karmic. And so these sneak attacks, I think, would really come under something that was unconscious, for one, that I, never expected this. I've been doing everything that I could possibly do, and all of a sudden, something happens that I didn't expect. Mm-hmm. And then, just like with Pearl Harbor, you find yourself at war. And if you haven't developed an army, if you haven't developed, these defenses that we talk about, our ability to protect ourselves in a situation, in the event that something does happen to me, physically, conceptually. It can happen on so many different levels. But being prepared and developing a practice of yoga that would build in this whole thing of being able to cure situations, to reverse a situation, to strategize a plan to do something. Say, for example, if you come up with a symptom in your body, to construct a plan to reverse that symptom, I think is really helpful. And using your Kriya Yoga, I think, gives you a really good template. Because first of all, like we said, there are no accidents. So if something is happening, then I've ordered it, I'm creating it. That puts you in a position of strength. That if I'm ordering this, okay, it's unconscious, but it's a thought pattern. Now it's a matter of me seeking out and finding that thought, changing that thought, and then emitting the new thought with the belief that has the power of intention to affect the change that I want to create.
Okay, I'm just going to use myself as an example, if I can. 2 mornings ago, I woke up with shoulder joint discomfort. And so you're saying what I have to do, so that we might as well talk about it because I think it kind of fits into the program a little bit. So what I have to do, what you're saying, is I gotta kind of backtrack and figure out, well, what does the shoulder, what it might represent, maybe, and what does the type of the discomfort, because I guess there's, obviously there's different kinds of pain, and maybe those might mean something just to me. Maybe types of pain are mean certain things to certain people, and so I have to try to use your phrase, try to unbox that, try to find the thought pattern that's behind it, and then from there, once I find the thought, then what do I do?
Well, once you find the thought, then, of course, Matter can't be created nor destroyed, only changed. You have to change that thought. So you turn your mind to your creativity, your imagination, and you replace it with a new positive image. And then using your practice, you mentally internalize the new image until you actually change the thought, right? With repetition comes absorption. And with an injury, I mean, sometimes there is going to be some healing time that takes place. Sometimes it doesn't have the immediacy of a miracle, but you can start to see changes. All of a sudden, the pain isn't as bad. Something is happening, and those are all things that would encourage you to keep doing what you're doing. But to come back to, like what you were saying, well, how do I use that? Some of the things, using a symptom in your body can give you a template, because you can start to assign it to a particular chakra and also a particular department in your life, based on, is it the right shoulder or is it the left shoulder? Right. And it would be different. And where does the shoulder fall in relation to your chakra system? Is it Mercury chakra or is it Venus chakra? And is it the masculine side or is it the feminine side? And these are things, like you said, you analyze it, you try and figure out, what does this mean for me? And then if it's, say, for example, the right side, it's going to have something to do with your ability to assert yourself. And if it's the left side, it's all about, listening. It's all about your receptive side.
I find that very interesting. And I know there are some people that would view having physical discomfort or pain as a bad thing. They would put a judgment on it that this is a bad thing. But I think my approach to comfort that I'm feeling is, I got to learn something from this. So I don't have this attitude of hate for this pain, because that just makes everything, just compounds everything. I look at it like, there's a lesson in here somewhere. If I can just figure out what that is, then that will assist me in the steps of the healing process, I'm assuming. But I also think it's your attitude for it, whatever it might be, that is paramount in the healing process.
Absolutely, and I think the single most important thing is your belief. That when you do undertake a plan to do something, the thing that you want to be is, you want to be on board 100%. You don't want to be sitting on the fence, and you don't want to be trying to decide and work through all of your doubts. Doubt is probably one of the biggest obstructions, because, again, thought being an energy capable of producing effects, measurable based on the amount of strength we emit them with, when you emit a thought with the burden of doubt, it just kind of dribbles off. So again, your attitude, believing in what you're doing, is of the utmost importance. And really guarding against anything that would undermine your belief, because to me, that's like your army. Right. That's the power behind your decision. And again, using Kriya Yoga, one of probably the fundamental principles of the whole practice is to use what we need to produce the feeling that we're okay, that we're happy. So as long as you have the availability of your next breath, you have an anchor. You have something that you now can hang on to. And if you internalize it correctly, it will give you belief. If you're looking for external reinforcement, then of course you're in continuous search. and you're kind of hoping for a placebo at that point. Anything you could latch on to would be helpful. But if your sense of self is totally established in the forces that are really important to you, then you're in bedrock. Now it's a matter of finding the thought, changing the thought, and re-recording it.
Well, I think we're going to hold that thought, and we're going to pause to hear a word from our sponsor. So listeners, will be back in a few moments, and I will open up the phone lines for any questions you all may have for Swami. So we'll be back soon. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnamudachyate.
If you are looking for a samadhi-based experience, IPD Kriya Yoga has the goods. A complete yoga program that includes the practices and the process. Starting with the separation from mother, including the labors and tasks of the hero and the return as a whole person. Practice makes perfect only when practice is whole. Kriya Yoga is a path of action, knowledge, and devotion. Samadhi, or total consciousness, is experienced by knowing and doing with devotion. Call or click now and get started. 603-929-0303 or www.ipdtransform.com. Namaste.
And welcome back. For those of you just joining us, you're listening to The Voice of Yoga, and we are talking consciousness. So at this time, I'm going to open up the phone line. So if you have a question for Swami, you can ask it right now. So, Swami, I'm going to actually take the time to ask you a question. And you talked about doubt. And when you talked about doubt, I had in my mind that doubt is another form of fear. And then I got to thinking that sometimes I see that people, when their symptoms, they have a relationship with their whatever it is that they have, whether it's a pain, a symptom, a disease, whatever, they have a relationship with it. And because you can hear people say, well, you know, my arthritis or my thyroid disease or my whatever. And then I was thinking, you know, once they take possession of that, now they own it, and it's become a part of them. And would you agree that in those cases, where somebody has that kind of an attitude, it's almost like this symptom, whatever they have, does something for them that maybe they're not completely aware of. Maybe it gives them the attention that they want. Maybe it prevents them from working. I don't know, whatever it might be, but it does something for them.
Yeah, and that's probably one of the more difficult things to overcome, because you're not directing your energy in one direction. You're kind of scattered. And so in any form of performance, one of the things I always say is offense is your best defense. That if you are looking to heal yourself, then you want to put all your efforts in healing yourself. And like you said, the way that it's kind of set up now, that people actually identify with these symptoms, they're using the symptoms to do something that they don't think they could do without them. And a lot of that stuff comes down to a lot of what we're trying to teach people. You know, that there's a difference between survival-based motivation and growth-based motivation. There's a whole different mindset that goes with it. There's a difference between a human in the larvae state and a human in the adult state. Now, of course, we do not have distinctions between these things. And we kind of lump everything up, that if you're in a physical body, then you're a human, and therefore you equal something. But greater than or equal to, I think, is more like it. There's a symbol, there is the possibility that we could be at a different level of consciousness, a different degree of awareness. Kind of reminds me of websites. You know, I mean, you can put up a website and it's called a website, but it could just be some text, actually just HTML language, and maybe some pictures. Then, of course, if you are more skilled with this concept of web design, then you could actually put what's called CSS, cascading style sheets, and you could add style to that text with imagery. And then there's also all of these other languages, JavaScript and PHP language, that you could add dynamic activity to your website. So not all websites are the same, and they're all called websites, but some, do way more than others. And I think the same is true with the human experience. And your level of consciousness, your degree of awareness, is going to be a very big variable in this whole thing. And somebody that is of the mindset that they're a victim is very different than somebody that is in the mindset that you're a creator. And when you assume the responsibility, and I think that's what the practice of Kriya Yoga that we teach people does, is it puts you in the position that there are no accidents, that I'm creating this. And if I'm creating it, then, and I don't like it, then I could actually possibly change what's happening. And having belief in that puts you in a completely different base of operation, I would say, because like you say, I mean, some people, they don't really want to let go of their symptoms. And so immersing yourself in that whole realms of caregiving, and you know what I mean? People, the average person, one of the things we say, never gets out of infantile defense mechanisms. We're seeking approval. And when all of a sudden now you get something and it gives you kind of like, almost like celebrity status, you listen to what people talk about. My oncologist, my doctor, my massage therapist, all of these people give you value on some level. Whereas from the perspective that I would take from Kriya Yoga is that you're in a position where you're at war with a particular symptom. It's something that is undesirable. But I also agree with what you said. I mean, you don't want to be angry about it. You want to be intelligent about it, because that's the other thing. Fear and anger, emotionality is the enemy.
That's why I think it's so important to whatever symptom that you might be experiencing. Like, I woke up with a shoulder pain. It's like I don't want to be mad at my shoulder because my body is trying to communicate to me. So why do I want to put that kind of energy back into my body with that thought? Because we all know that thought is so powerful. I want to turn it around and say, yeah, I'm a little uncomfortable right now, but I know I can learn something from this. And thank you for giving me the opportunity to learn whatever lesson I might have to learn. And now it's my job to unbox it and figure out what it is. So in the meantime, I'm doing my exercises and, I'm trying to put good thoughts and try to direct my prana, into that area and, whatever. But now it's my responsibility to be able to figure it out. And that can be challenging for us. So, I think my first step, like you said earlier, I got to go back and try to find the thought that made that happen. And if we all did that collectively, imagine the power that we would have and the change in the world that could possibly happen, and maybe we could avoid those sneak attacks.
Yeah, wouldn't that be nice? But the whole thing here is when you are kind of blindsided, when you are the victim of what I would call a sly rap, all of a sudden something hit you, then you really have to be prepared. And organizing your line of defense with prevention and also cures, I think, is a great way to deepen your yoga practice. That you really, an ounce of prevention to me is worth a pound of cure. But when all of a sudden something does happen and you're dealing with something that has manifested itself that you're not sure of how it got there, then again using your practice so that you can figure out possibly what are the thoughts that are creating this undesired state, and then using your practice to change those thoughts and then re-internalize them. Change the pattern of the body. And again, just like you said, it's all part of understanding how things are working and not getting frustrated or impatient with the whole thing. Sometimes it's going to take a little bit longer than we thought. Who would have figured that World War II, that we would be at war for a couple of years?
And then what I think is interesting about that comment is that we're still talking about it. We're still, movies are still being made about World War II. I think collectively the world is still trying to unbox that whole situation, right? And all the details that are involved in that atrocity. So, but I hate to put a judgment on that either, because that wouldn't be the yoga way either. So it's all very interesting how everything is connected in some way, shape, or form, that we can connect ourselves to something that happened back in the 1940s. And we're still learning.
Yeah, that's the relativity of it all. And I also think it's also recognizing that there is a part of reality where we transcend time and space. That in this indivisible, unified state, everything is happening at once, which gives you a whole different perspective of reality. And so, with that, I think we're probably going to have to start closing down the show. So I would wish everybody a good Pearl Harbor Day, and to actually use this memory as a means of recognizing that stuff like this does happen, and to guard ourselves against it and be prepared for it at all times, I think would be a pretty good concept. In hockey, we used to say, keep your head up. And with that, I wish everybody a good day. Namaste, and I'll give it back to you.
And thank you. So in closing, listeners, I would like to invite you to visit the website at www.ipdtransform.com. You can also visit Swami on Pinterest and Twitter and Facebook too, of course. And when you get on our website, there is a link there for online classes. You can just click that link, and that will direct you to Powwow. And then from there, you can make your selection. But do keep those comments and questions and curiosities coming, because Swami does enjoy hearing you. And be sure to tune in to our show next week. We should be talking about non-greed and the holiday season. So thank you for listening to our program, The Voice of Yoga. This is Lisa Winton along with Swami Jayananda signing off. Have a wonderful Kriya Yoga kind of day. Namaste.